This week on RSBANDB Update, we poke our heads into the most recent Game Jam, where we look at Spongeatouille's potential cooking updates, herb sprite changes, and progress on the Daemonheim Archaeology digsite. Also, RuneFest is on the way, and we share our first thoughts. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 975, recorded Thursday, February 29th, 2024. Jelly Jammin RuneFest. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RSBANDB Update. Tanis and I are here to deliver this podcast episode to you guys. Thanks for being here, Tanis.
Thank you, Shane.
You ready for this? You ready to have some fun?
I'm ready to jam it in.
Yeah, that's exactly
jam it home.
That's exactly what we're looking at this week, the folks Game Jam updates. But before we get too far down the tracks, I'll thank our experienced tier Patreon supporters. And this week, that is Amos Reed, Andrew C., Drama Free, Jason S., Jesse W., Kesky, Ricky A., Rippeth, Runestar, and the Naked Captain. Of course, RSBANDB Update would not be possible without these people, and we'll hear more about our Patreon offerings a little bit later in the podcast. But in the meantime, the full show notes are available at update.show. You can also find our friends chat, which is in-game at BitsBytes, and of course, we do have the Discord as well at update.show/Discord. And you mentioned Game Jam, game jamming it up. Yeah, it's time for that this week. The folks are working on Game Jam inside Jagex while we were working on Double XP. So we're just going to go through some of the Game Jam updates that have been highlighted here. Starting off with an update from Mod Dorn, and I don't know exactly what you're going to be able to take from this because there's a photo and they're all very different shades of green. So I don't know how that comes out to you.
It not well.
Can you see the red ones at least on the left, like the third and fourth row? There's some red ones on the left.
I mean, it's better than I mean, it's better than the others.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for people wondering, the red ones on the third row are Borgali, Avanto, and then Quorum there. So it's interesting how not Borgali, Avanto, Quorum. Wergali, and then the next one below that, the really red one, is Bloodweed. And then what you see through there is a list of seed, dirty, and then clean herb. And, I don't know about this. I feel like it's nice to have the visual distinction for it. But at the same time, we've gone this long with such subtle differences of the herbs and the colorings on them that I don't necessarily know if we need something like this at this point, because it's been years that we've had this and it kind of works how it is right now.
I mean, I barely knew there was a difference. I mean, part of me thinks that it could be helpful for some people, but honestly, I feel like even for people that can see it's subtle. I don't know.
Because we're all going to be learning something new if and when this comes into game, right? Because we know what the herbs are and what we just have presets for the seeds and whatnot.
Yeah, and I still feel like when it comes to when you're wanting things to stand out, contrast is much more important than shade.
That's a lesson I think that a lot of people don't realize, because like if you take because correct me if I'm wrong on this, if we were to take this herb image and make it grayscale, you really wouldn't see much difference between these, right?
Exactly.
And then when you get to that, and I feel like we don't talk about this enough. many people might not be aware you do accessibility things in real life with the glasses that you use. You're an ambassador for the company and whatnot. And I guess the thing to ask on this is that even for, folks who have normal vision, let's just say even corrected with glasses, do you think that that's still true, that the contrast differences are more important than shade to people with normal vision?
I mean, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you even up that to the next level on there, and you start to get a picture of just how exactly things can land like that. So it's an interesting exercise, to say the least, on that. And I'm actually just going to see briefly right now if I can make this image grayscale, so I can illustrate here what we're saying to people who are watching on the show, or on YouTube rather, because when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, that's a very important thing to talk about, I think, on there. So no, that's not going right now. Anyways, that's what happens when I try and do image editing live on air, people, here. So I'm not too fussed either way. If you had to take a pick, would you take this one or not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I would notice a tremendous difference. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've never noticed a ton of difference with what we have now.
Yeah, okay. And I actually just got it done here. I made the image black and white, and you are entirely right that by making these things black and white, the thing that is going to stand out here, of course, is the contrast. But even then, when you do that, they still all look largely the same, even with that. So maybe you do have a point on that. But okay, so that's Maud Dorn's Game Jam project, and there's a link to one of his tweets on this that shows the grid in question for that. Maud Pebble is also at work. She wants to make some changes to the city of Yanil, and in particular has been soliciting ideas, but her own personal idea on this is that it's a city with a focus on flowers. Which, I mean, at the start isn't something that we, would have immediately assumed with Yanil, but it's, something I'm not necessarily opposed to either, because, you walk up next to the Wizards Guild, you can definitely see that there. So, I think on that one, it'd be interesting to see what kind of prototypes we have and how that looks at the end of the day. So I'm fine on either of those ones. What do you think about flowers and Yanil? Yes, no.
I mean, so Yanil's just gonna go woke now, huh? So just woke Yanil, just flowers everywhere, and what's next?
He's not being serious, people. For people who are wondering.
No. No, I mean, Yanil is very nostalgic, so kid gloves probably with it.
That actually came up in the Discord too. Is that let's just make sure that in doing an area like that you're kind of keeping in mind where it came from. So, but I'm eager to see how that looks when it arrives.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I remember in Yanil, it was always like the sand pit, and that was where my house portal was for the longest time. Because that was the best place to go, and the pet store where you could go, because I know
what did you need from the pet store?
didn't you ever have Mr. Popper's penguins, where you set up a whole penguin menagerie and you have a fill it full of penguins, and but you got to
No,
feed the penguins and get
no,
them. Oh, well, Shane.
no.
Yeah,
That was
had all
never a
kinds
thing
of
for me.
penguins. Yeah, because before we had like an abundance of pets, there was like a few birds, a couple dogs, a cat, right? And
So maybe should have been the pet city then.
oh, could be the pet city. We could have a pet, a dog park, a pet park in Yanil.
Do the dog park with flowers.
There we go.
Okay, there's the answer on that one.
All right, see? Just had to brainstorm, just had to work it out there.
Yeah, pet hub. All right, let's go one step further then and talk about what is the biggest one that has been talked about here. And this is Mod Sponge working on some ideas for the cooking skill, and of course, emphasis to note, very much a work in progress, kind of a prototype at this stage of just a general idea, and the idea would be to call it a fine dining update for cooking, where you would be able to use the cooking skill to produce meals that in turn would take different items from the cooking skill and provide different buffs and benefits to you. Okay. Initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts, I can see this being a inventory space saver. I am not sure that matters for the best PvMers out there. I mean, these guys are doing stuff with no food and bronze armor, right? Like, so I don't even know if that's
and I mean,
for them.
Like when you get down to it, if you're looking at PvM, you have, of course, the solid food options, which are going to be rocktail soup, sailfish, if you really need, that burst of HP. Then you have the liquid food of the Sarah brews and the Guthix brews, and then, of course, you have jellyfish.
And I could see a combination of those, of the things that you get from those things, and you know what I mean, maybe in a new, but I don't know. Or is he going for a new food?
He's going for
new food
basic
items.
Like what this looks like is a complete revamp to how we see and use the cooking skill, because we need to be 100% honest. Out of the cooking skill, the only food that people really use at the end game, and the one that probably has the highest in out of the economy, is of course fish, right?
So I can see inputs being like potions and like a base food. So you would have like a base food, and then you put on your gravy or your au jus, whatever you want to call it, your sauce.
Yeah.
And then then you can put some sprinkles on top, like some, I don't know, something like jellyfish or something, so you could get the adrenaline part that comes from it. Yeah, jellyfish sprinkles.
Yeah. So let's go through an example meal here. The meal is called Fire Starter, which increases the speed at which you throw logs onto a bonfire, and burning logs would grant an additional 10 XP on top, and it would last for 60 minutes. So the idea behind this is that you would use, and get ready for this, there's a whole flow chart here, but I'll describe it for everybody. You use raw kebbit and ground nasturtium seeds to make a spiced beast. Then you would combine vegetables with giant moss to make a curry base. Then you get a curried beast, as in you'd cook that and you'd have curried beast. Then you combine dough and milk to make naan, as well as butter and Yanilian hop seeds to make Yanilian butter, which gives you Yanilian naan. And then you combine that with the curried beast, and you get Yanilian curried kebbit meal, which then can be combined with something like you said, maybe from something like Herblore, where he says add a dragon biter on top of that, except that's from cooking, where you get your fire starter meal.
Mm-hmm.
And it lasts for 60 minutes, and it's basically a buff.
So, I mean, basically, yeah, very, I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about, using those different. The only thing with that one in particular, it's a very lengthy process, so you want to make sure there would be a reason for doing it. But to me, this is the cooking overload. This is the cooking masterwork, and I do like that idea. I think there's room for that idea.
Yeah.
But you have to balance it between making it rewarding but not overly cumbersome, but cumbersome enough to justify it being rewarding enough.
Yeah.
So it all comes down right to that balancing, but you could do some cool things. Does this take away from any other space, though?
And you know what this is when you look at this? This is exactly this kind of reward space that Aura's used to provide.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah. And and more, right? Because I mean, yes, Herballore's in a good spot, at 120, but we're always talking about other things.
Yeah.
Is
and maybe the thing is, maybe you make these non-tradable, right?
And totally, I mean, you would make it. I think you make it non-tradable at the point, of the finished good.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but the stuff it takes to make it, that should be tradable.
Which is exactly how Overload works.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. There's also with this, there's a differentiation to make the individual types of food in game is stand out more. So you'd have your standard food, which is your fish, your meats, and your soup that heal for a flat amount. They can overheal at higher tiers and range from 30 to 25% of your life points per food item. And it's got the 1.8 second cooldown before you can eat the next one. Then you have pies, which are 3-bite foods. They heal less than standard pizzas per bite, but more per slot. And they heal 60 to 40% of your HP total. And there's a 1.2 second time on them. Pizzas, 2 bites, heal less per bite than standard, but more than pies for 45 to 30% of your total life points per slot. And as well have the 1.2 second time on them. Then, of course, you have the cakes and jellyfish, 3 bites, combo eat, less per bite than other foods. Then there's room for expansion here. He mentions stews, curries, sushis, and soups, which heal for less initial compared to standard, but would add a heal over time for better total healing, but less immediate healing for 20 to 25% of your life points initially, then an additional 10 to 15% extra with a 1.8 second cooldown. And I find this space actually the most interesting because I don't think we have many heal over times in game. But when you think about it in every other MMO or RPG kind of thing that's out there, heal over time are very, very popular.
Yeah, I mean, that's your sustain, right? Like
Yeah. So that's where my eyes opened with that one. Then you have the potatoes, which is a flat amount plus % of players' max health, which would be a food designed for tanks rather than DPS, like a panic food. That's interesting to see a bit of a kind of a class thought there, I think, on that.
And one in which I would have went the complete opposite direction because tanks usually are the ones using heal over time, aren't they?
I mean, it depends on the game. I've seen it for both, Like I've seen it as both. Though I also know, and this is an interesting thing to think of, we always say, how many bosses do you really need a tank for in RS, right?
Yeah.
It's basically like Yakamaru and AOD and one other one, and then and then that's it. You can, of course, do Raksha and have a tank or do something like that at Solak, but you're going to be better off if you just have both players doing deeps. There's also an option for
game.
Yeah, there's also an option for baked breads and gnome goods, which would heal for a flat percentage of players missing HP, which would work well at low hit points but bad at high hit points. And then there's just a miscellaneous category for other food slots as well, which would just heal the most for one bite, which would be a panic button. Does drain a sizable amount of adrenaline and would heal 30 to 45% of your HP per slot. So this is kind of the way Mod Sponge is thinking of going on this, just as kind of categorizing food and then adding in maybe these sorts of meals. Some of the other meals that he has that are just examples. Important to note that these are just examples here. Behind him, there's no guarantee that any of these will ever see the light of day. There's some for rune crafting he envisions, which would make it so that when you create runes at the ZMI altar, it grants a certain percentage more runes, and runes will be of a better quality. There's another meal where rune creation is increased by a certain percentage point, and you are then prevented from teleporting. Also prevents teleporting to the Abyss, and Abyss then would become the best XP running to altars, and then, running to altars would be for the best GP with that meal active. Runes created are consumed, granting a certain amount of XP each. That's an interesting one. You can combine that then with the Abyss one for heightened XP at no GP. And with that, I think you would completely turn the idea of how you train rune crafting on its head.
I was going to say, how do you feel about that, Shane?
I like
planting soul runes.
I like it. Do you?
This was always, yeah. I mean, because this was traditionally the best way to do rune crafting until the soul altar.
Yeah, until the ZMI altar, then RuneSpan, then the soul altar. Supplanted all that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess fine. Although,
and keep in mind, these are just like effectively back of the envelope napkin scratch marks kind of things at this point, as far as we know.
I'd rather have top tier content be locked behind a skill grind than a quest anyway.
Right.
So I'm cool with
How
that.
would you feel about it being unlocked behind cooking? And cooking moving to be kind of a supplementary kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
no, I mean, that's...
Because that's also what this is doing, is that this is kind of treading on the identity of Herblore, making consumables for buffs. Except this is food, whereas Herblore is potions.
But we could look at it as integration of skills and making them even more relevant, because we're able to use herbs that we gather from we grow with farming, use an herb lore to garnish our fancy dish and cooking now, but we have to have it's almost like making an elite skill without making an elite skill, making elite skill rewards, right?
Yeah, I see that, and I'm not sure how I feel about that now that you made that connection. Because you know how I feel about elite skills.
Yeah, but this is it. I don't know. Maybe this is a way of getting the good things, that integration part of it, but not
right. And I feel like as well, if you said, "What's the problem with cooking?" I feel like this addresses it, in that the food really isn't segmented into things that have clear boundaries behind them, and this could do that, and there's just no reason to use anything other than fish, right?
That's my biggest fear with this when I was first looking at it, was the items it has to be relevant.
Yeah,
and that was what because your high tier guys, they're not eating food.
No,
not using it.
It's at most jellies and brews or Guthix brews.
Yeah. And so I think there is, there's plenty of space in the game to find different things. I think there's space in PVM too, but you need somebody that is an expert, does it to tell you where that space is
and
at.
in terms of
in
terms of the ingredients that he has in mind, is that the ingredients it could come from Hunter. So kebets, payas, caramblon, wilder pies, admiral pies, honeycombs, unused seeds and produce, bones for broth, decorations can be hunter feathers, Larupia parts, Grakme, Kayet parts, basilisk eyes, jelly from Slayer.
I'm just picturing a certain tribe of brothers out there hunting grizzly bears.
That happened already.
Yeah, I know.
Or poking the jellies for the jelly.
Oh, the jelly.
Brined rats, moss from moss giants. Fire giants could, for example, give liquid smoke. Ice shavings from ice giants. Raw rock crab claws from rock crabs. Raw lobster tails from rock lobsters. So, when you think about that, on that front, that's interesting. And, we just talked about the rune crafting ones, but he also has a couple listed here for Hunter, too. Catching creatures with tracking would grant a certain amount of more XP, and he says these could and probably should be buffed anyways. Mining, a dwarven casseroles. Rock opportunities would appear at an increased rate, and hitting rock opportunities grants bonus ores and XPs, and you instead would tire X% faster, and the effects of tiring are increased. Favors active mining. Then there could be another one. When mining, you grow tired more slowly, but gain increased XP. Rock opportunities no longer appear, and chance for ores to be destroyed, which would favor AFK mining, which I think is something you'd like.
Yeah, no, I'm liking all this, but something just kind of struck me, and that is, it's too big for Game Jam. This could be a 120 expansion to cooking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's enough content there as there was with Herblore.
Right, and keep in mind, though, that Mod Black Witch's graphical updates started with one map square done for Game Jam, and those got taken onto the schedule because of the, just how they popped and wowed the community, right? So
yeah,
it's going to be a discussion of whether or not the players want something like this, and you bring up a good point. Might it not be better to save this for a 120 cooking?
But it could be 120 cooking,
right?
Like, there's a lot of stuff you just routed off, right?
Yeah, I didn't even talk about the fishing or the combat ones.
Right. And I think that if you looked at it, it's when they expanded farming and Herblore, it's probably not. It's not that far off from that content. From the amount of content that was added with that.
It's not. I do have a
I'd take it for a headliner.
Okay.
I'd take it.
Anything's a headliner.
Where we are,
anything's a headliner at this point. But Fisherman's Feast. Chance to cause a fishing frenzy, and during this time, each click, 1 per X cycles, will catch a fish, which favors active fishing. Combat. Fremenic Berserker Stew increases max adrenaline and reduces magic, range, necromancy damage by a certain amount. So, the thing I'm seeing with this, if something like this were to happen, this is taking the spot that Auras used to take in terms of granting, like a buff, right?
Well, yes and no.
Which isn't a problem, because I think we're done adding auras in game.
Yeah, I don't think we have auras coming in the same way anymore. But it's something I like about about this in particular, it feels very targeted. I don't, we talked about if it's encroaching on herb lore or this or that, and I actually, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, this is actually really
In many ways,
thought out. This is very
this could be the way
targeted.
to buff, skilling, because
Yeah.
I feel like we have enough buffs on the combat side as well. And that was my other thing I wanted to talk about with this, is that this opens the door again to another level of power creep on the combat side, which signifies that, we have things like necromancy that was just designed and put out last year. We have the impending stuff that's on the beta world for the other 3 legacy combat styles out there. But one thing we have not heard of in any of that, in any of the necromancy stuff and any of the beta stuff, is we haven't heard, what's happening with, buffing items, and what's the vision for buffing combat. Is it really just, take a sip of the best overload you have and call it a day? Or is there another reward space to lean into there that can be done with this cooking update? And the thing that I'm getting to on this is that if it's going to be something other than just for skilling, there needs to be a cohesive vision of what this buffing looks like on the combat side before, you go too far down the track
Yeah.
and you add another, tier of power creep.
Well, I could see it being more oh effect over time, right? Like
Oh yeah, I mean, like, the
whatever.
food is fine. I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
like in terms of buffs that we have in game, this is another source for them to come in addition to invention, in addition to auras, in addition to overloads, so on and so forth. Right? So I'm just saying, let's be careful
Yeah.
about this before that's done, given, where we're at with necromancy and its damage potential.
Are you saying that for some reason it seems like it's easier to create a buff than it is to create a content that would make a buff relevant and useful?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of okay.
Unless they're going for the necromancy approach in terms of bringing that damage floor up so that more people can do more content. And, that's something we really haven't heard much of in the combat discussions on that, because, when you think about it, that has been, I know it's been a rather sore point for a lot of people, is that there's this, the attitude that we talked about with necromancy, where people say, that necromancy has made things too easy by raising the skill floor. And the question is, if you add more buffs and you further raise that skill floor, I think that's great that more people can PVM and more people can, get the fun toys and whatnot. But at the end of the day, what's the strategy around that? And does cooking fit into that in a nice, neat, and tidy way?
Yeah, well, there are so many similarities. When you think about it, there are so many similarities between the herbal expansion and what this cooking is
Yeah.
and look like.
I mean, hell,
And,
even with the 120 farming, we got the food items out there to make the primal feast.
mm-hmm.
Do you know anybody that uses those? I got some for Christmas a few years back. But, you don't use them because they lower adrenaline. You got 10,000 life points in one slot.
Yeah, no, you use them to do some stupid herblore training on double XP with some power burst. That's some fruit that came.
They actually give cooking
the old
XP.
The primal cooking feast. XP?
Yeah. Level 115.
Oh, yeah, the primal
Level
feast.
115 cooking is needed in that you actually do need a cooking potion to make them.
Yeah. I think it's there, but the power creep argument,
it's a valid argument, isn't it?
It's a valid argument, and because what we have is a skill that you could take to 120. You have a way that it's being proposed in its own way. That makes sense. The only problem we have is we don't necessarily need that buff space in combat.
Right, but you could do that. But you could do that in skilling, or you go back to what Osborne wanted to do all those years ago and do the skilling offhand. Do more of them. That's another way to do this buff space. So it's a question, which would people rather have? Would they rather have more skilling offense, or would they rather have it through cooking?
But I feel like you get more this way because for the first time, I'm not actually looking at what it's gonna do for you as much as how I'm looking at what it could do for the skill.
Right.
But maybe that's just where I am in RuneScape at this point in time, where I'm
keep in mind that 120 farming was the ranch out of time, a bunch of new animals, and a bunch of new trees and whatnot past 120 or past 99, and that was the 120 update. So what you have here is a bunch of new dishes to make that give buffs, and presumably what you would do then is you would package this in with maybe some sort of expansion to the cooking guild if you were to make this part of, 120 cooking.
Yep.
Or you just ship it on its own at, high level 90s and, call it a day there, and you miss out on the option of going to 120.
Yeah, which would be a shame, I think. Because this would be a good way to do it.
Yeah. And, the question I'd like to ask, Mod Sponge and other folks working on something like this is 120 cooking in the cards anywhere inside Jagex with this? Or is this, just something being done here at a game jam level? And that's the end of it. Because if 120 cooking would ever be in the cards, well, this feels like a good addition to it.
Yeah.
So, let us know what you think, folks. Let us know what you think.
Yep. Stick a fork in it, Shane. I think that's done.
That's a good way of putting it. Next up is a rather simple update from Mod Fowl, which is inclusivity fixes for titles, specifically picking up on some of the work that was done by Mod Raven to just expand the options available for people who might want a gender-neutral title for a lot of the titles that already exist in-game. So the example given is that, of course, you have the Iron Man and the Iron Woman, and this is just Iron and the Iron as an example. And, of course, as we see in lots of places now, the option to actually just have a pronoun as your title as well. So those are options, and I feel like this is something that can just, be put into game with probably no questions asked as well. So, oh, interesting. I missed this on the Mod Sponge section in the news post. It says Spongeatouille has taken a moment away from the combat to look at the next greatest battle, cooking.
Spongeatouille. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of Iron Ass.
Yeah, he'd be good at having that one.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Mod Fox has the furniture shark, building off of some of Mod Fell's previous work, which of course is a shark as well, that people could just have, and I guess have as a plushie, including a variant that has the trans colors on it too. Now, here's the one that everybody wants. From mods Kaosi, Frosh, Kitsune, Fox, and Blackwitch, there's more people on this one now. Daemonheim Archaeology continues.
Yeah, let's go.
They've been making progress on this, including developing the mysteries, designing a relic, inputting achievements, and touching up some of the base camp snow, and lighting, and even building out a new map concept. So I think it's safe to say it's happening now. given the fact they're
Let's
designing a
go.
relic and developing mysteries
Yeah.
for it.
Mysteries. This this is the archaeology little we need a little something. We need a little dose of happy. I want some archaeology. Come on.
And
I saw mysteries. I was like, oh yeah.
all we got to peek into this is a white box map with some red lighting on it. We don't have anything else to know what this is going to look like yet.
Yeah. But
cooking aside, this is the one I'm most excited for. Assuming it makes its way into the game.
This one's the one I'm the most excited for. Yeah.
Because we know, look how much the Scentisted mini dig site added to the game on its own. Look how much Orthan, a full dig site, added to the game on its own. I feel like Scentisted was as impactful as any of the other ones that were put in. So if they, keep on the same track with that with Daemonheim, that makes sense. And I think it makes sense that Daemonheim would fit into the Zamorak Book of Mysteries on that, given, its location and the lore associated with it. So,
yeah, I feel like I want it to be on the level. I mean, I know it won't probably be on this level, but I would love it to be on the level of an Orthan. Just because I love the Daemonheim lore. I don't know. I like the Fremennik stuff. I like Daemonheim, and it's been such a mystery for such a long
because we
time.
never did get Floor 61 stuff, though. I feel like some of the Floor 61 stuff was probably touched on in one of the Zamorak quests we did, if I remember correctly. I think that was the word. I'm forgetting the name of the quest, but they did bring some of the stuff they wanted to do with Floor 61 into that.
Well, wasn't it like, then they tried to say like Floor 61 was his headquarters, like Zamorak's hideout, or
yeah, and that's what's under Daemonheim now, of course, is Zamorak's headquarters.
Yeah, but I don't know. That to me is I mean, I know Santistan has a rich history with Zaros and all that, but this would be even, I don't know. This is on the level of like the Dragon Kin stuff, like with Orthan for me.
Yeah. My question with this is that, most of archaeology takes place when the gods are still in the world, right? So my question is, with this update presumably coming out after the gods have left, of course, chronologically, will the lore associated with this, in effect, be kind of time capsuled in the same way that City of Scentistan is a permanent time capsule of the Elder God Wars? Because that's an interesting thing to think about, too. But that's a topic for another day with a Lore Diggers episode, I think.
Yeah. Go get the band back together.
Yeah, we do have to do some Lore Diggers. Mod Helen has been working on organizing the Wars Retreat boss portals in order to provide sorting for when you attune the portals, which I think is a good thing, given how many items are on that list. Mod Luma has been working on updating the Shooting Star D&D, aiming to keep the core event identity the same, but improve the systems around it by making it more reasonable to solo without impacting groups, as well as adding new locations, improving the XP and bonus XP gains, and making them more convenient to use alongside creating a shop for Stardust and new achievements to go with it.
If she's able to do this, I'd be like, I think it'd be great. Because this made me think back to, I remember back in the day watching Clan Chat, and people would shout out a shooting star, right? Like, it'd be like, oh, world, da 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 da. And it's not relative enough. I mean, it's not really good enough to do now. So if she could make this relevant, it would be.
Yeah,
Be cool.
and to be fair, from Fresh Start, going back through that early to mid-level stuff, even as they are now, I got a handful of levels off of a shooting star when those were around in Fresh Start. So let's just also keep in mind that they're actually okay XP in some contexts, but could use some care around the edges.
In those level bands, I mean, like, I'm talking about back in the day, it was relevant.
Yeah, like 40 to 60-ish.
Yeah, and we were a hell of a lot lower level than we are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, Mod Stu and Grace have done some research into the previously used combat jingles, and Mod Grace has modernized the older MIDI jingles so that they can make a triumphant return. And Tanis, I don't have it set up so you can hear this right now, but I'm going to play this for the people.
Right on.
Oh, apparently that won't even play. All right, that'll be inserted in post. You guys will hear that at around this time, one of the combat jingles. But I had to listen to it before the show, and I honestly can say I've never heard any of these noises in game before, even the current one. So maybe that's just because I don't get combat levels too much, or I have some of those settings turned off presently. So, but that's the game jam this time around. I feel like we had a good word about cooking, and that's probably going to be the one that's going to elicit the most discussion from people. While archaeology will be the most wanted one.
Mm-hmm.
So, important to let Mod Sponge know what you think. I'm going to thank some Patreon supporters. Then we go into the other big news of the week. So starting off, I'd like to thank Alvaro L, Amos Reed, Andrew C, Arvids L, Chubura, Daniel W, Dominic R, Drama Free, Duramax, Free Milk, Guy Lafleur, Jacob G, Jade Gizmo, Jason S, Jeebus, Jesse W, Kesky, Lemon Lodge, Ling01, Luminos, Nate the Great, Pernasius, Ren Hawk, Ricky A, Rippeth, Runestar, Samuel FL, Scott DS, Shirt Pants, Targayen, The Naked Captain, The Dabbing Goat, Tim, Tom V, Ukulele Steve, and Zant. Now, you guys voted, and our next monthly bit is going to be the introduction to PVM, where we'll be taking our guinea pig through a series of discussions and just effectively telling somebody about, hey, you want to get involved in PVM and you just do Slayer right now? Okay. We have some ideas for you, and you're going to learn how to begin PVM specifically to a level that will be adequate to go through all of the Elder God Wars content. So that's the plan for the March monthly bit. We're aiming to record that in the next week and a bit. So if you want to hear how to get into PVM, or you just want a bit of a refresher on that, you can sign up at patreon.com/RSBANDB and join for as little as $1 a month. You'll gain access to that episode when it goes live and an entire back catalog of monthly bits or bonus shows, as we call them. And with that, you also do get a mention in the show notes for your support of RSBANDB Update. We then have our VIP tier for $3 a month, where you receive a special VIP rank on our Discord, which includes chat channel access, a mention on the podcast at the start of the month, and high-quality stereo versions of the podcast as well. And if you want to give the ultimate gift, for $5 a month, you'll receive a shout-out on the podcast each and every week and gain exclusive access to the outtakes we use to make the clip show at the end of the year. And of course, again, a big, huge thank you to our experienced tier members. That tier is presently sold out, but we are coming up to the spring mail out on that, so maybe there might be some more spaces on that. We'll just have to wait and see. But thank you, everybody, for supporting us. It does truly mean the world to us. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks.
All right. You know anybody who's itching to come back to RuneScape right now? I hear the crickets.
Yeah. But this would have been a good would be a good deal if there was like a seasonal type event,
Yeah.
maybe where you started over.
Yeah. Or, got to do some things with, highly juiced up XP rates. What we're talking about is, of course, a new $1 membership returning offer where you get 14 days of membership as well as 24 hours of double XP to use within 30 days.
There it is. What have we been telling people? What have we been saying on the show for
you got to sell double XP
time? That it was coming. We were saying that you were saying you got to. I was saying it's coming.
Well, let's go through the eligibility requirements on this because they're steep. So, this update, this promo is available from February 27th through March 27th. The character must have been a member in the past. The character must not have had an active membership for the past 30 days. The character must not have been active in RuneScape for the last 30 days. And the character must not have completed the old school RuneScape tutorial.
Dude. I mean, you can look at it, you can put whatever restrictions you want, but Jagex is just a tip on us right there. All right, it is opening the door.
Yeah, when you consider that right now, one bond, I think it's like $6.99 or whatever. That's what it costs you to get 14 days of membership with a bond. This is $1, $1. That's less than a price of coffee in this day and age.
Way the fuck less. I don't know where you get your coffee, Shane. What, you drink some
I don't.
got like grit in it and shit? Like you boiling it on the stove? Like what are you doing?
I have no idea, and I'm like fully aware. Like what's a cup of Starbucks go for anyways? Like $6-7 probably?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, something like that. So way less than that. But so let's unpack this. I think if you're in the camp where you would pay quarterly, this is a good thing for you, and you come back. I also think that this is a good thing, of course, for people who only played RuneScape 3 exclusively. But I think the two biggest categories that this is aimed for are the people who only play for key tentpole pieces of content, which we have not had any of recently. And you know who else this is aimed at?
Who's that?
This is aimed at people who canceled over Hero Pass.
Okay. I mean, we can give it that.
Oh, and if you want to know the corporate angle on it too, this is to juice up membership numbers after the sale.
Yeah. Well,
that's the corporate angle on this.
To be expected.
We're not wrong. That's not wrong, is it?
No, no. I mean, I think it's spot on. But what I think is interesting.
What you want is them to sell that 24 hours of double XP time a la carte to you.
Oh no, that'll happen. I mean, they've opened the door now. Like that'll happen someday. Like that. Now that the ceiling has been broken, it's that will now probably happen someday.
Like, could you imagine somebody going for 200 mil all, and just saying, "Hey, I'm free this weekend. Give me a 24-hour double XP window, and you can purchase this, every other month." Can you imagine how useful that would be to these people?
Oh, I mean, I'm all for it. Like, I don't. Yeah, like I'm all for it. But what I think is interesting is the timing is all off. And the reason I say that is just like you say, the people, one of the groups that it's marketed towards, if it's being marketed towards people that come for tentpole content, Come back and do what?
Easter,
come
apparently.
on back,
Easter
guys.
Easter
Come
is
back and do
March.
what?
Easter
Come
is
back
March
and
31st this year.
fucking what? Like, this is hey, I think it's a good idea, but pair it with something to come back for. Come back to. I mean, you know, solid 50%,
presumably,
guys.
we're recording this on Thursday. I mean, presumably, we'll be hearing about the combat beta and when that's coming in March on Friday's live stream.
Yeah, I mean,
if you want to come back for that.
I just don't get why you would use this at this time.
It's obviously to juice up numbers for post sale. That's what it's got to be about.
I know, but wouldn't you think, like, at the end of the day, you want it to be effective, and
you have no idea how many times people, pay month to month or pay quarterly, and then just go on the
blowing your load on something that you might not get a lot of bang for your buck on this one.
I don't know. I think it'll show on there, and I don't think we'll see a difference. I don't think we'll run into people saying, "Hey, I just came back," and I just came back under this promo. But my fresh start alt could get this. It hasn't logged in 30 days.
Bitch, that must be what they're trying. You always got to remember it's not players, it's accounts.
Right. That's actually a good point. My skill peer has Premier. My Fresh Club alt does not have members and has not logged in since Christmas.
And the XP.
So this is a way. Okay. So this is a way then to reactivate all those fresh start accounts.
Could be.
Which speaks to, again, your strategy of accounts over players.
Yeah. Accounts are players.
Yeah, they are. Most of the time it's 1-to-1. Sometimes it's 2-to-1. Sometimes it's 8-to-1 in the case of some people. I don't know what the most extreme variant I've ever seen was, but...
Well, in the democratic state of Gillinor, you can buy as many 1-to-1s as you would like.
Yeah?
And that's how many ones you can be. And at the end of the day...
But what's the purpose of us playing on our fresh start alts?
That's the problem. That's why I say you're blowing it with the timing.
I could go and I could do the entire Fort 4 and 3 quest line and unlock all of Fort 4 and 3 in that month after a bunch of training. I could do that.
But there's nothing fun.
No, there's nothing that comes from that. I'd rather work on the skill pair if I was going to do something other than my main on RS3.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna put out a call in the community and see if anybody's taking advantage of this.
Yeah, there's not even any content that you would want to bring your alts back, right? It's just not paired with anything. It doesn't. I don't see how it's going to be that effective.
Right, and we're pushing into March, and then we have April, May, June, July, August for something, and then come September when we get the RuneFest announcements and teasing of what's ahead with that, which we do have more information on with this. Do you have anything else on this promo, this dollar membership, or should we move on to RuneFest?
No, the ceiling has been broken. There are cracks in the wall. It's only a matter of time before the hordes of monetization break through, and we can buy our time.
You know, that would be an
XP
interesting thing
time.
to see, just how many people would seize on the ability to just buy 24 hours of DXP, right?
Wait, it's coming, and ain't nobody above it. Nobody above it. You give people some inverted skill capes and watch how much money they get them a month
Okay,
trying to get that shit.
now you're stretching it. It would be nice to come back, but apparently last time somebody asked Mod Doom about that on Twitter or whatever, it evoked a firestorm.
Why does everything have to invoke a firestorm?
I don't know.
Why can't we just have nice things?
RuneFest is a nice thing.
That is a nice thing, but you know why? Because that is about...
It's about the community, and it's about a huge morale boost, not only for the people who go there and who have never been, in terms of community and meeting up with other scapers, but also every JMod I have spoken to have said that one of their favorite times of year is always RuneFest. So as happy as for players are to have this come back, you can bet that the JMods are over the moon for this.
Yeah, this has always been a dream to want to go this, but
yeah, we're TBD on that still on my front for this year. But when it comes down to it, it will be at the NEC in Birmingham on the 7th and 8th of September this year, but it's also being run in tandem with the Insomnia Gaming Festival, which I think was a shock to a lot of people.
Yeah, because, well, and what's funny about that is, like, so many scapers are, like, scapers.
And they mentioned this on the live stream, that so many people who play RuneScape, that is their only game.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I would be interested in things going on, in the wider scope of gaming.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many. I mean, look at people that we talk to. Look at our Patreons. Look at our
community.
Our
is
community
made up of primarily people who play RuneScape as their game.
Yep.
There was a live stream on this with Mod Sween, Mod Doom, and Mod Mark, which, by the way, wonderful to see Mod Mark on live stream again. That was the sole purpose I watched this live stream. It's just I wanted to, see Mod Mark's energy back in studio sort of thing, So
I
that was
didn't
great.
know he was still there.
Yeah, he's creative director for everything RuneScape across all games.
I thought they put him in a basement with a red stapler at some point, or we never saw him.
Yeah, and I mean, like I think he's has a hilariously low number in terms of what his Jagex employee number is. So he's been there since the beginning. But it's going to be your traditional RuneFest. On Saturday, of course, will be the panels. On the main stage where you'll hear from Jagex, and then they want to do something a bit different where on the Sunday they do a more Q&A style thing. They do more kind of community-centric things, interacting with the community on Sunday for that. So with that, I want to kind of go back to the Insomnia thing and talk about how that is. And before the show, I had a bit of a look at what the NEC in Birmingham looks like. And for folks in the U.S. listening, we're talking about Birmingham, UK, not Birmingham, Alabama. I already had to make that clear to somebody on the producers team earlier today. I think we could all guess who. It was Earth. I said it's coming to Birmingham. He's like, what? Birmingham, Alabama?
No. Absolutely not.
Have you been there before?
In Birmingham?
Yeah.
I've been to Alabama, and that's close. That's close enough.
All right, fair enough. So Insomnia started in 99 as a LAN party. This will be their 25th year. And the way the NEC looks is that there's a number of halls that are situated there. So my sense is that within Insomnia, Jagex will have one specific hall for all things RuneFest, would be my guess. Whereas you compare it to previous years where you had the smaller, more cozy venues in London like Tobacco Dock and Battersea, those were smaller. Then you had 18 and 19 really big out at Farnborough. They had the entire convention center there for that. Whereas this, it looks like they'll be going for a little bit smaller than the ones at Farnborough, but they're going to have an entire hall, probably just for all things RuneFest on this. And my hunch on this as to why they're going this route is that if you can be part of a larger event like this, it also helps to offload some of the things when it comes to logistics, but also cost as well. So that's my hunch as to why they're doing it this way for the first one back.
Maybe too, they're hoping that like somebody wanders down the hall from the larger game and they're like, "Oh,
that's not going to
I
happen
remember
that
this
way.
game."
That's not going to happen that way. You have to
No?
specifically buy a
Bummer.
RuneFest ticket,
Okay.
and that gets you into RuneFest and Insomnia. But if you just are there for Insomnia, you can't go to RuneFest without getting a RuneFest ticket.
Okay.
So everybody who wants to go to Insomnia and has RuneFest tickets will be able to do that, but not the other way around.
Let's see. Okay.
But they said that Old School's Summer Summit will be held at RuneFest. So Old School roadmap confirmed for that.
What's the roadmap?
And once again, radio silence on the RS3 front. But presumably, we'll be seeing demos of some content at RuneFest.
Hey, Mod Mark's back. Maybe we'll hear about things that we might get in 2034. I mean,
you're talking about the Church of You, aren't you?
I sure am. Never forget.
Yeah, and that'll be the interesting thing, I think, on this. Just looking at this from a meta level on the RS3 front. Is the RS3 team going to go 100%, inspirational and above the top and, just really put on a show for this in terms of showing what an aspirational vision of RuneScape can look like heading into, dare I say it, the second half of the second or the third decade of the 21st century.
That's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. Because that's what this one is about here for this. And, I think there's lots of RuneScape 3 players that want to hear that. But at the same time, I also know the community aspect of RuneFest, and I know it's not necessarily, about the nitty gritty. It's just a exercising community at that point. So
I think that that aspirational sense was it's a hell of a lot of fun because I think RuneFest, for the people that are there, it's special for other reasons. But for everyone that isn't there, that was always like you get
the reveals.
Yeah, and okay, yeah, of course I'm going to joke about the Church of You. I always joke about Church of You. I'll joke about all that stuff. But I still remember that weekend because I remember watching live stream sessions like on Twitch and stuff like that whole day. And so it's I don't know, it kind of brings everyone together, and that stuff I think is just as important for the viewer.
Right, because how do you do that without RuneFest, without, a winter or summer summit kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does Jagex have for RS3 that does that on its own? Nothing.
Yeah, no, that's and there
It's
hasn't
been
been
up to
since
our
RuneFest.
communities to do those same sorts of, community bonding exercises with meetups and whatnot. Like for the last few years, there's been a Clan Quest European meetup that has always happened in the summer. So that's something that, the folks of Clan Quest have undertaken on their own regard for that. And I'm sure smaller communities have done things like that as well. But there's nothing that, has effectively been flying a Jagex flag. And, without sugarcoating it, that's very important and very, very much needed at this point in time, especially for RS3, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's got to be the best thing that we hope out of this, is that we head, as I said, into that second half of the third decade of the 21st century with a vision and an idea of where this, 20-plus-year-old game is going to go. Because right now we don't have that vision. We haven't for quite some time.
Yeah. Nope.
The last vision I have of that is in the 20th anniversary book in the last chapter, which, as we know now, sadly hasn't come to fruition. So, there you have it, folks. Link is in the show notes at update.show for the full RuneFest rundown. All right. Let's talk about some of our own things in our community, the achievements this week, as we're rounding out double XP here, as that is ending. So to start off, on the 28th of February, we have Oasis with 120 cooking. On the 27th, we had Waffins with 99 necromancy and 99 woodcutting. On the 26th, we had Chulbura 2 with 120 necromancy, Jammin 52 with 200 mil defense, Lotzi with 99 necromancy, Lone Phantom with 120 cooking, Luminos with 120 dungeoneering, Mej Quest with 99 fletching, Yahoo with 99 prayer. Then on the 25th, we have Lampy with 99 defense, Mosin Natha with 99 hunter, and Woody with 120 crafting. Then G with 120 smithing, also on the 25th.
Nice. All right. Then moving on to the 24th, we have Arcane with 120 thieving, Arendelle 120 with 120 necromancy, Jade Gizmo with 99 necromancy, Keski Rocks with 99 necromancy, Lotzi with 99 invention, Lord Dusty with 120 firemaking, Nunny 01 with 99 necromancy, Oasis with 120 crafting and divination, Legion 1943 with 99 necromancy, Skilmos Deputy with 99 dungeoneering, and that's on the 23rd. Zai with 120 runecrafting and hunter, ouch. It's on the 23rd. Dambridge with 99 construction, Skilmos Deputy with 99 cooking and runecrafting, and Ultra Dog 177 with 120 Slayer, and Z with 120 crafting on 22nd.
Nicely done, everyone. Nicely done. Double XP Storm is now behind us for another 3 months.
Nice mix of 99s and 120s there.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing more 120s these days.
Yeah, mature.
Both real and virtual on that. So, all right, pick of the week time. So, back in the day, I believe it was 1990 or 1991, Star Trek: The Next Generation had the series' first end season cliffhanger, and it was a huge cliffhanger. And of course, we're talking about the episode "The Best of Both Worlds," when Picard is taken by the Borg, and there's a whole backstory behind what happened with those events. So what a series of fans have done is put together something called the Wolf 359 Project. That is a fan-written book, multiple hundreds of pages, I must say, about the backstory behind this, about what happened at that battle, what happened in the immediate aftermath, and, of course, the reverberations that it had throughout the institutions following it. So it's definitely, I'm going to say this is definitely beta canon on this, because nothing here is 100% canon. But for anybody who's interested to see what something like that might have looked like, if you are interested in this sort of Star Trek thing, this is definitely something to have a look at and read through. And they call it the oral history of the Battle of Wolf 359, because what they have is a series of fictitious interviews with folks who were there. So they, of course, have the usual people. They have people that you will have heard in other Star Trek series and whatnot, and it kind of paints a picture about what was happening with that. So if you're at all interested in Star Trek, if you're at all interested in the Borg, or what happened with that episode, The Best of Both Worlds, this is probably something you should head on over and have a look at. You can find it at wolf359project.com, and you're probably wondering, how much does this cost? The book is 100% free. It's 100% free. It's a 491-page PDF. 491 pages.
Seems like that's a lot, huh?
Yeah, it is.
This sounds awesome, though. And, I mean, it's the Borg, right? Like, such a, not just the next gen, but plays a role in Picard. And,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because, there's this whole thought in the canon that it was this event that really started, militarizing things, right? And that's kind of what led to what we see in, Deep Space Nine and whatnot like that. So you start painting that picture, and you can, kind of get an idea of what was happening with that. And if you, want to really dive into this, you can do that. And they have all sorts of timelines with this. And there's even some, picture formats too, like artistic renditions of it. Interestingly enough, one of the people who did the renders for this actually worked and did some of the promotional work for Star Trek Picard, believe it or not, for Season 3. The Starship renders and whatnot. And is very active in the Star Trek Online community. And you can actually tell that some of the models used in the renders to create the pictures for this book are actually the Star Trek Online models. So, a very interesting project nonetheless. And if you're at all interested in Star Trek, you should definitely check this out. I don't know if you have any... Do you have any specific way where you can open up a PDF and have it read to you?
I have to think about it. There's nothing that's coming to me right now.
Because that would be your only way of going about this, I think. There's no dedicated audiobook, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I would have to figure out a way to do it, but it could be done. I mean, I could do something as simple as just having voiceover on when it comes to my phone. And having it downloaded to that. So there are plenty of ways to do it. I just have to decide which one is more comfortable.
Yeah. And apparently these people are also working on stuff for the Dominion War from Deep Space Nine and a History of the Galaxy class as well. So this is just their first foray into this.
I want to know that too. That's a good pick, Shane.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're ever gonna, take it to that next level and actually get it, actually self-published and printed, or if there'd be issues doing that, given the, the Star Trek nature with CBS, because it hasn't been blessed by CBS, so it could be difficult in that regard.
If that's who owns the IP, then I'm sure that's all right.
Yeah. But if you're at all interested, wolf359project.com. What have you been up to on RS?
So finished double XP up,
Yeah.
just, doing that.
The hangover after that?
Yeah, doing a little bit of, the fletching did not, take all that long, so, finished up with the good old gathering and just, was working on wood cutting.
Yeah.
Um, we'll get that 120 one of these days, man. It's a slow one.
Oh, I know. Like, I found the best way to do wood cutting was just to go in and do the dailies at the Ark. I felt like that was my best bet.
And that's when that was the best, per hour. And I don't even know if it's still holding up now.
I mean, I think Elders comes out ahead now, honestly.
That's
based on how the wood cutting update went. But
yeah,
I mean, it's still competitive. If you want something that's largely AFK, and you could just go there and grab.
Mm-hmm.
So, best of luck to you on that. And I mean, the question is, like, why? And see, this is the thing. Like, why do wood cutting, right?
Same reason I've done any of the others. Like, I look at real versus not real. There is no real versus not real to me when it comes to 120 skills. There's skills that have content to 120, but it's kind of like, it's like saying wrestling ain't real. Maybe maybe they know where they're going, but those injuries are real.
Yeah.
Like, that shit hurts.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, it's the amount of time you want to kind of sink into that too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to continue on the fletching then and, gradually get there to 120?
Yeah, I mean, I'll collect supplies, in between, basically in between wood cutting, and then that, I did a few double XPs that I worked on prayer, right? Until I would run out of money, and then I'd have to wait till the next double XP, right? So I imagine fletching's going to be a little bit like that.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think prayer was my second 120 behind invention.
Oh wow, yeah. That's expensive.
It sure was.
And you know what the interesting thing about that is?
What's that?
Is that I'm sitting here and I look at my at my skill list, and I already, last one I did was fire making. I already had wood cutting, and I thought I'm going to go in the order in which I got my 99s, and that so happens that the next two 120s for me then would be fletching and divination. So I could be on that fletching path too, but I again have that same sort of thing, is that, should I go for the 120s even if they're virtual, or should I wait to see if there's ever like real content behind it, right? And that's like, there's just a consistent struggle for me. I don't necessarily know why I feel that way. I feel like if I could come to a realization on that, I'd be better able to determine whether or not that was something I wanted to do. So, anything else this week for you?
No, that pretty much wraps it up.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I didn't do much double XPing since we last spoke, since we last did the round table, since last week's podcast. But I did continue the Raziel killing, and it's gotten to a point where I had to run the numbers because I've crossed over 850 kills at this point. Based on the drops rates for the weapons and the armor, in terms of how all that works, there is a 97.9% chance that I should have gotten something by now.
Well, then I think it's obvious they're holding you back. It's the Cambridge mob.
Yeah, that's got to be it, right? And yes, I know how RNG works. I could go another 1,000 kills and not get anything. I'm not guaranteed to get anything along the way. But boy, this has to be the biggest dry streak that I have ever had in game. And of course, it just has to be the first one that I start counting for. But I'm getting really good with that living death rotation, I do have to say.
Yeah. Oh, very nice.
Yeah. But aside from that, just a bit on old school. We had Defender of Iraq last week, so we did that. We did a bit of a compare and contrast with the Defender of Iraq that was shipped in RS3 and what was old school back in the day, I guess you could say, compared to what we got now. So it was an interesting thing to see. And right now, the quest requirement grind continues, presently grinding agility over there for Well Gothic Sleeps, because I want to be able to do that one on launch week as well, which requires 66 agility, level 59 presently.
Very cool.
So that's what I've been up to in all things RuneScape this week. I don't know that there's anything else left for us to say, but we'll be back next week for another episode of Update. Subscribe on all your favorite podcast listeners out there. We're on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Pocket Cast, and more. Just visit update.show/subscribe. And we're also on YouTube at youtube.com/RSBANDB. Do like and subscribe. Greatly helps the channel out. And with that being said, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update.
See ya.